I had a question come in asking about writing a song that has appeal to a wide audience and what makes a hit song. And I want you to know that I've given this some thought because this is a really big question and it's a really good question. I'm going to talk about several aspects of the song, and I even have notes. That's why I'm wearing my glasses so I can read. I'm going to talk from the macro level to the micro level. And again, I want to preface everything by saying that there is no one formula, one size fits all. There is no one size fits all about any of this, because you've got songs like Adele, someone like you, but then you've also got Doja Cat and Cardi B, and there's a broad range of things that can become hits. I'm going to talk about some general things first. So first of all, there does need to be some universal appeal in some way, and emotion is the one connecting thing of how does the song make the listener feel. It has to have an appealing emotional impact. So that can manifest in terms of just having a really good beat, but also having a lyric that impacts you. But before we get too deep into all of this, we need to differentiate the difference between songs that sound like a hit song compared to songs that actually have legitimately become hit songs. You can make a song that sounds like a hit song, but that doesn't mean it's going to actually become a hit. For every song that has become a hit song, there are thousands of songs that are just as catchy and just as hit worthy that circumstantially just don't end up becoming hits. So it doesn't mean that you've done something wrong if you've compositionally and musically done all the right things. There's still a lot of it that's out of your hands. That's just how it is. So on the macro level, meaning far back, big picture, there's going to be a hook that is going to be the central thing that gets a listener to remember the song. It needs to be memorable and catchy. It needs to be appealing in some way. There should be some factor of relatability. I mean, there are songs like Blurry Face that are a little bit strange, but it's still really interesting. So even if it's not relatable, it needs to be interesting. Another thing is, besides how does it make the listener feel, is where does it hit, or where does it fit into their day? Where does it fit into their lifestyle? So is it the song that they work out to? Is it the song that they cry over a boyfriend with? Or is it the song that they just put on when they need to do some reading? But it needs to have a place in their day, in their routine. And that is very smart writing if you can think of how you want your song to function. Okay, so let's talk about hooks. There are so many types of hooks. There's the main hook of the song, but then there are also instrumental hooks. Cool bass lines, awesome guitar riffs, synth hooks, piano parts, something in the instrumental element that is also repetitive and memorable that gets in your brain. In addition to that are non-lyrical vocal hooks. Yeah, 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 la, la, la. Those are so helpful. I mean, you listen to the song by American authors called Best Day of My Life, and you pay attention to all the hooks in that song and how little lyric there actually is. Non-lyrical vocal hooks are also a really big thing. Vocal performance plays a big part of what feels like a hit song. It can be a lot of things, but what it can't be is boring. You cannot have a boring vocal. You can have a super weird vocal. You can have a super intense vocal. It just can't be boring. Production is also a big deal. Most of the time, the production fits the psychology of the lyric. There are the outliers like Pumped Up Kicks where there's a disconnect. But most of the time, the production, the lyric, the melody, and the vocal performance all actually work together, and they have the same type of psychology and the same type of messaging. So that's another aspect of it. Don't underestimate also the importance of having a really good mix and then a really good mastering engineer, because you want the mix to really pop and you want the mastering to make it so that when you put your song on a playlist with other hit songs, that there's no dip in how loud it is. And I know the people get upset with the caterpillar looking waveform and how it's just things are over compressed, but it's just kind of how it is right now. So you got to make sure that you've gotten your song mastered so that when it's on a playlist, it's not quieter than all the other songs. That's really important. Another component is just the general appeal of the artist who's singing it. They have to have some appeal to the massive audience, whether they're the weirdo, whether they're the girl everybody wants to be, whether they're the guy every girl wants to date, or whatever. There needs to be some appeal, or whether their voice is just so amazing, you know. That's another thing. So that's macro level. Now let's talk micro. Micro is when you get into the nuts and bolts of the actual composition. And one component that I think a lot of people really underestimate is how crucial it is to have rhythmic repetition. And I mean really strict rhythmic repetition in your song sections. So your verse needs to have strict rhythmic repetition. Same thing pre, same thing chorus, same thing bridge within themselves. If you pay attention to rhythmic repetition in hit songs, you're going to hear a lot of it. But in terms of rhythmic repetition, you also need to have contrast between your song sections. So you can't have every section starting on the downbeat or the pickup or after the downbeat. There should be at least one section that starts in a different part of the measure rhythmically. There's also busy rhythms versus open rhythms and slow rhythms. You got to have contrast between song sections. That plays into the repetition and variation aspect of it. Rhythmic repetition, but variation between song sections, variation in your pitches, variation where you want something unexpected at some point, like at the 3/4 mark on your chorus. You maybe put a leap in there, and if you've got a leap that is already in there, try taking it up one more step and see what that does if it's more unexpected. But there does need to be something in your song that is not predictable, that is not cliche or expected. In terms of your melodic writing, the rhythm is more important than the pitch. There are a lot of songs that just plateau on one pitch, but the rhythm is a complete earworm. And then, but a song like Someone Like You, then the lyric is obviously more important. Melody is more important than lyric, though, generally speaking. But the lyric does need to work with the melody, and the psychology of the lyric and the sound of the melody and the production, it all needs to work together. So, now, let's talk about, that's all songs that could sound like a hit, but they may not be an actual hit. Let's talk about songs that actually end up being a hit song. There is usually a machine behind it, the industry machine. Don't fool yourself into thinking that the normal way to get a hit song is just to keep posting it through your own socials and it's just going to take off. That may happen once in a while, but that is the exception. Usually there is a team of people. Usually there's a lot of money behind it, promoting it to all the gatekeepers, radio programmers, playlist editors, also just getting it in front of people's faces. Like, that has to happen, and that does not happen most of the time without a team of people and a decent promotional budget. And I'm telling you, when you make your album, you're only halfway done. Promoting it takes just as much, if not more, work to get it to go out there than it took to write it, and I'm sorry to tell you, than to write it and make the whole thing, even though that's already a huge crap ton of work. Money, team, and then behind the scenes, you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But another aspect is that artist ready to get on the ramp to the fast lane and take off in their career? Not all artists are ready to ride that wave, so that's another aspect too. So hopefully this is helpful. This is by no means thorough and complete. I'm limited to my 10 minutes here. And also I'm limited to what I know, and none of this is absolute. But also don't underestimate luck.